So StraboSpot, as I said before, has been developed for using with mobile as a mobile app and as the desktop management version, a web-based management version. And so the development has been for sedimentary geology, petrology, and structural geology so far. About 3 years ago, 2.5, 3 years ago, I got involved with this group at a meeting in Dublin, Ireland, about bringing in new Tephra standards. And so what we did with that meeting, and soon thereafter working with Christy Wallace and the group at the USGS, was put together basically a way to make sure we could get Tephra samples into the data system. I'm not going to be able to show you everything with that, but I can show you some examples here. And basically what we're able to do is all of the data that are described in the best practices paper that is online, and that's been put up before, that data structure exists in StraboSpot, not on as it is, but all of the categories, all of the vocabulary, and all the data entry items are available. So that's how you would end up entering data into StraboSpot using some of the other options. If you go to the help system at StraboSpot, you can see that there's Strabo Tephra PDF documentation. This is for Strabo 1. And we have here a complete help system describing how to work with StraboSpot for Tephra. And I'll just go through this a bit. Part of this just shows the setup. This is the Strabo 1 interface. Creating a project. We won't go through all of this, but if we come down a little ways, then we'll see that you're able to set up information, for example, sampling for eruption response. So this is an example, a help menu on where you would get to with that. Basically coming in, collecting a sample, and then that sample, you're able to say that you're doing the work for eruption response, and it then fills a vocabulary there that you see in the little drop-down box that describes what you're able to, the data you're able to collect. And again, those data are all the same as is present in the best practices document. So you're able to go through for all of these and put in as much information, Tephra information, as you want. And we have that. This is the example for eruption response sampling here. So you can label things like samples, source vent, purpose, et cetera, all of that. And then you can also collect field data just in general. And this is showing sedimentary lithologies. We're putting the Tephra in with sedimentary rocks, volcaniclastics, and then you're able to enter the information that, again, are in the best practices. So if you wanted to enter componentry, alteration, presence of particle aggregates, all of that information is available that you can enter in there. And it just keeps going. This manual explains how, where you would enter everything. You're able to put this information in, and then you can get it out again through some sort of export, Excel export or a table export, which I won't be showing here today. Anyway, so there's quite a bit of information that you can justify here. The other thing, and Nick started showing this with his work, was that you can put up a stratigraphic section. And a stratigraphic section, again, as I mentioned, you would measure a stratigraphic column, you would add intervals to it. I'm scrolling down here, and you would be able to then document and log an entire outcrop and put the information on. You can put pictures behind this and use whatever you want with it. So this is the Tephra specific information that can come in. And then, as Nick showed, you have the interface where you can get information about your samples. In Strabo 1, you can export a CSV table of information that basically fits the USGS reporting template for Tephra. So you're able to get that information out as well. So this is what the help manual is. I think you all got a link to this to look at ahead of time, and we're able to, hopefully able to take a peek at this. Okay, let me get out of here now. And let me go to search and just demo a couple things with search on here. So the search area is very large. I guess this is not, there we go. And for example, you can set a lot of different criteria that you want to use. But for example, I could do keywords and type Tephra. And it'll search through and find different places where, where different Tephra samples are located. And I could go, for example, now and look at the Utah regional data from Steve. And I'm able to go into the map, click on it. It'll show me all the individual spots. Then I can go and look at these. And for example, I can get information about when samples were collected, if there's samples, any sort of images that were taken and uploaded with this are documented here. And then any sort of lithologic information. So these can be fairly rich. You can get a lot of information out of here if you want. Let me go to this guy right here. And so, for example, for this area, a different spot area, I can zoom in and you can see any sort of notes or any sort of other information that were collected to Tamalo Tough. And so this is the sort of information that you can get out of this. And you can do with the search capability. So all of that can be reached when you're back at the main StraboSpot website. And I think without the other information, I'll stop there and let Nick go ahead and do demo on Strabo Micro.
Yeah, I'd like to interject just for one moment, since particularly with the example you just pulled up. So those spots that you're showing, those are field sites from the 1990s.
Okay.
And this was put into the system in the laboratory using the web interface. So you can go through and put in your old data too. And then it can be made available just the same as newer data.
Yeah, you can incorporate legacy data very easily, and as well as collecting new data in the field.
And you can put sample locations. If you have a shapefile of sample locations, you can actually just upload that shapefile, and the website will digest the shapefile, and you can kind of say which attributes go to which kind of data type in the StraboSpot data system. So that's a good way if for people who have worked with other GIS software and they have rich shape data and shape files, you can turn those into spots in the data system.
I did exactly that for the Newberry volcano area, where there's like 300 localities. And yet that's the most efficient way to get a large number of spots into the system. And if those shape files contain some data fields, that data can be captured as well. So in that case, there was a layer thickness data that came along.
Yep. Should we address some questions before I go to a demo? Or Doug, were you Were you done
I
there?
actually, after 2 hours, my computer restarted. I'm going to pull up the PowerPoint that was supposed to go with the last discussion. I'll pull a few things out of that. There were a couple other points I wanted to make, but why don't you go ahead and take a couple questions and we'll do the Strabo micro, and then I'll finish up. I'll just do a finish up with that information.
Okay.
Yeah, Nick, there are a couple of questions there in the Q&A that you might want to handle.
Yeah. Such as all the varies one, such as what is listed under lithology or things like class.
Yeah,
Is that a continuation of a question?
Chris was asking about the search interface, about whether the entries under lithology, things like glass, what he listed there, whether those were customizable or not.
And customizable as you search, or customizable in the app?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I didn't follow the question. That's kind of
for data entry. So I see. So for every basically every data entry, so if it's, you know, even to the scale of like rock type, there's almost always an other field. So if what you're observing is not on the list, you can say other and manually type in what it is. So that's kind of how we've dealt with that. We've tried to be relatively extensive, but it's impossible to capture, you know, the vocabulary that every person uses. The other thing is that, you know, we are capable of expanding vocabulary to some extent. We try to manage that to make sure that the vocabulary is useful for a lot of people. But, you know, if we have completely forgotten, you know, a main common data type that you're or piece of vocabulary, there is room to add to the data system in the future. Okay, can you add data from cores from different areas such as sediment, peat, and ice cores? Yeah, so there's nothing that stops you from doing that. I think, you know, some of the data that you might usually collect in cores, like for example, I can imagine that maybe you want the depth, you know, the where in the core you sampled from. You might need to do some figuring out how you can make that work in Strabo. Off the top of my head, we didn't build it for that, but I think that you could come up with a good solution. You can create a custom base map, for example, that is just a photograph of the entire core, or a scan, right, of the core, and put spots on that. There would be no issue with doing that, and then make the spot where that core was taken in the world. Make the kind of parent spot where that core was taken in the world.
You could also you could also get in just a second. You can also get in and create a stratigraphic section of type core, and then you can log the core in your stratigraphy just like you would measure a section.
So another question, is it possible to work as a group if you have several field teams in eruption response or a mapping project that all need access to at the same time to the same project? This is something that we want to proceed with caution about. So we are actively thinking about this. We haven't implemented a kind of multiple users logged into different accounts working on the same project. What you can do right now is, and what I've done in the field, and it works really well, is everyone logged into the same account. So if you have like a research project that you know is going to go for quite a while, you can create an account for that research project, and then have everyone be working on a separate data set. So, you know, I just showed you basically adding data to one data set, but you can add multiple data sets that maybe correspond to different field seasons. Maybe they correspond to different people working on that project. When you upload all those different data sets to the project, each data set kind of is its own package, so you won't be overprinting other people's data. So that's kind of the way right now that we work in teams. Everyone logs into the same account and then works on their own data set. When you go and upload to the database, those data sets stay separate. But you can view them all at once. Okay, Doug, should I do the Strabo micro?
Why don't you do that, and then I'll finish up with some things at the end that hit other issues I know people are going to be interested in.
Okay. Well, then I will share my screen. I'm actually going to start back